Hi, and welcome to the Sound Tweakers podcast. My name is Norbert Weyer. I'm a freelance sound engineer working in mixing, mastering, and post-production. This podcast covers the artistic, technical, and business side of being a freelance sound engineer. If you'd like additional information, please check out the show notes on futuresonic.com. And if you like the podcast, please consider supporting me on Patreon. You'll find the link in the show notes. In today's episodes, I'll discuss 6 habits that will make you a great dialogue editor. The one thing that you have to nail in audio post is the dialogue. Sure, all other elements need to be spot on, but if the dialogue is having problems, then you are looking for trouble. To complicate things a bit more, editing capabilities have gotten more and more sophisticated over the past years. With the advent of software packages like Isotope's RX, dialogue problems that used to be acceptable now need to be meticulously edited. Let's dive right in and see which 6 habits you should develop in order to become a great dialogue editor. First habit, develop your communication skills. Now, it doesn't matter whether you are working solo on a short movie, for example, or if you are part of a bigger production crew, your communication skills will make or break your relationship with your client. Here are some things that you should definitely find out before you start working on a project. First of all, what are you going to receive from the location sound recordist? Talk to the producer, talk to the location sound recordist, and find out exactly what you are going to receive, what is going to be the source material that you're going to be working with. Second, find out what deliverables you are expected to send to the director or to the producer. If you're working solo on a short movie, for example, this might just be the final mix of the film with everything. Now, however, if you are part of a larger production crew, maybe you need to send your work as a Pro Tools session to the next department. Finally, make sure that you know about the deadlines involved in the project. When are you going to receive the source material and when are you expected to deliver? Now, this last thing ties in nicely to the second habit that I want to mention. Be very clear and specific when you are talking about deadlines. And the 3 most important points about dealing with deadlines that I want to mention here are: first, make sure that you understand all the deadlines that are involved and make sure that you can meet them. Second, if you can foresee any delivery problems, communicate this as early as possible and ask whether schedule updates are possible. Well, if they are, lucky you. If they aren't, maybe this calls for 1 or 2 sleepless nights. And third, think about the good old maxim: under-promise and over-deliver. It really, really brings you a long way in post-production. The habits that I mentioned up to now are all about communication, dealing with your client, and working with deadlines. Now, the next habits that we're going to talk about are really focusing on how you should do your work. Let's get right into it. Habit number 3, check your session setup and sync before starting to edit. There are a lot of weird things that can happen in audio post. So save yourself the tears and the sorrow and allow yourself enough time to check things like frame rates, pull factors, the audio format, the handle length, and of course the audio sync before you make a single edit. Habit number 4, and this is probably the most important one on the list. Less is more. When you are editing, do not overdo any processing. Try to keep it natural. 3 things that are very important to remember here. First, most directors or dialogue mixers prefer a dialogue that maybe is a bit dirty, but it still sounds natural. As a rule of thumb, if you find that it starts sounding Skypey, you've done already way too much. So keep it natural. Second, be overly careful with algorithms like noise reduction, de-rustle, dialogue isolate, and the like. Again, if it starts sounding artificial, you have done too much. And third, remember that Foley, sound effects, ambience, and music cover a lot of the problems that you are hearing when you're working with the dialogue in solo. So in many situations, there might be a tiny little noise in the dialogue and you're trying to take it out, but it actually makes the dialogue suffer. It doesn't make it sound unnatural. But in the end of the game, you find out that there will be Foley or maybe music on top of it, so you wouldn't actually hear that sound. So instead of cleaning up the dialogue too much, you rely on the other elements of the soundtrack to help you covering up a bit of that dirt. On to the next habit, know your tools. The tools you're going to be using are mainly your DAW and the software package that you are using for cleaning up the dialogue. In this podcast, I'm going to be specifically mentioning Isotopes RX and Pro Tools, but you can transfer what I'm saying to pretty much any other software package that you can use for cleaning dialogue and any other DAW. Within Isotope, it's absolutely paramount that you know what all the different modules do. So take yourself some time if you're not familiar with Isotope or whatever software package you are using, and experiment a bit with it. Take a piece of audio that has a couple of problems and experiment with the different modules that the software package you're using is putting at your disposal, and try out especially the extremes. So for example, in Isotope's de-Russell algorithm, find out what a low and a high reduction strength and a low and a high ambience preservation setting is actually doing to your sound. This will help you to develop a vocabulary that you can then use to determine what algorithm and which parameters are the best match for the problem that you're trying to eliminate. Another isotope-specific time saver is the capability to define shortcuts that call a certain preset. Let's stick with the de-Russell example. You could have various shortcuts that call, for example, a de-Russell algorithm with a high ambience preservation or low ambience preservation. And then all you have to do when you're editing is selecting the area of your spectrogram that you need to treat and then call that shortcut, which then will actually invoke the de-Russell algorithm with the corresponding parameters. It's a huge time saver. In terms of Pro Tools, there are a couple of editing functions that you definitely can't live without. So what I recommend you definitely getting yourself up to speed with are the different edit modes combined with the different edit tools, all possibilities to work with playlists, which is another huge time saver, working with color coding to organize your session, and working with window configurations and memory locations in order to call certain layouts of your screen. And a bonus tip for you, using a controller, and that might be a physical hardware controller or it might be a controller app on a tablet. The Pro Tools Control app comes to mind here, which doesn't only work well with Pro Tools, but it works well, for example, with Isotope as well. Those controllers can be a huge workflow accelerator, so I recommend using them whenever you have access to them. And the last habit for you to develop is have backup points available that you can get back to easily when your director or your dialogue mixer asks you for a revision. Within Pro Tools, the best way to realize this is to work with playlists, because playlists enable you to save an unlimited amount of different arrangements of clips on your tracks within the same session. And there we have it, 6 habits that will make you a great dialogue editor. I hope you liked this episode, and if you did, then please give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening to this podcast. Also, if you've got any comment, I'd love to hear from you. As always, you can find the show notes on my website, which is future-sonic.com. And if you really like the podcast and want to support my work, then please have a look at my Patreon page. You'll find the link in the show notes. Until next time, happy sound trick. Goodbye.